Hello, Steve Arts 89. Star Wars. I already did one video about this and it was way too long. I was just waffling on about stuff. But there's been a bit of drama. I've kind of been ignoring it because there hasn't been a lot of real news or anything really interesting coming out since Rise of Skywalker and the sort of the new sequel trilogy kind of ended. But there seems to be two issues happening with Star Wars at the moment. One is there is the rumor that creatively they're going to eliminate the sequel trilogy and that this veil of the Force exists, and people are talking about it like it's some sort of time travel device where they can go back and change Star Wars and eliminate the sequel trilogy. I think this is wishful thinking. This is people projecting. I don't think it's actually going to happen. Some of the people who I've seen talk about the veil talk about it as though it's just what Luke experienced in that little cave. Basically, it's a way to basically view the future, view different outcomes and different things. It's not actually like time travel or a way or a means to actually change reality or anything. So I don't know if Star Wars is a multiverse yet or if they're actually going to do that. But they eliminated all of the expanded universe stuff and then ignored it and wrote their own new sort of what would you call it? Well, a new universe in a way, actually, and it hasn't resonated so well. And I was talking about this before, but I'll get into that later. But the second thing with Star Wars at the moment is the Civil War. There appears to be a civil war between the Kathleen Kennedy film side of Star Wars and the Favreau TV side. Because, let's be real, the Star Wars sequels weren't as successful as they should have been. And at the end of the day, the investors are the ones who dictate what happens with Disney. If they're not making money, the people at the top are not going to care about the artistic goals or political agendas of people like Kathleen Kennedy. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, she may have good intentions, but the whole reason why they bought Star Wars was because it was a male-orientated franchise. It had a fan base. Because apparently Disney skews female after a certain age, and apparently the Disney princesses are more interesting to women. Apparently kids watch Disney stuff up to a certain age and then they stop. And Star Wars was a very male-orientated show with a very male fan base. Although there are a lot of women who watched the show, the sort of bulk sort of fans were males, you know, the man babies. So that's kind of why they bought Star Wars, because they wanted to bring it into Disney and bring a male audience that was going to stay past a certain age. But instead of embracing those people, Kathleen Kennedy, who was put in place by George Lucas, who really wanted his Star Wars and his characters to live on with Disney, and that's why he sold it to them, because he thought they would maintain it and keep it alive. Instead, they killed it. As I said, you know, kill, you know, the past. Let the past die, kill it if you have to, or whatever. That was more than just dialogue. That was an intention. That was... I don't think people are reading into a lot of the things that they're accusing Kathleen Kennedy of. And I understand how important political correctness is and diversity and all that, because I'm a gay man. You know, if it weren't for political correctness and all the things that are being pushed, I wouldn't be able to walk down the street without being called a faggot, and I wouldn't, you know, like, those things exist, so people who would otherwise be discriminated against, who shouldn't be because they're equal, you know, it exists for a reason, and I get why you would want to have inclusivity and representation and diversity in your films, but when you make that the focus, you alienate people, and it's not just political, it's also just the creative. I sort of realised the other day when I was thinking about kids, basically, shows like Star Wars that work on, like, sort of on a legendary operatic sort of level, you need those characters that are identifiable. You the stereotypes, the traditional characters, the heroic man, the beautiful heroine, the sort of traditional sort of characters, people identify with them more, and children identify with them, I think, easier than more progressive, modern takes on roles and characters. So, I mean, you may want the sort of feminist, ideal female character, but that doesn't mean people are actually going to like her or want to follow her or want to be her. And kids, they're going to have a lot harder time recognizing and relating to and understanding these sort of progressive, modern, different sort of not characters. I'm losing my words. But yeah, I just sort of realised, it's so much harder to market and so much harder for people to identify with, and it makes it less classic, less iconic, and it just doesn't resonate like the other ones do. And you've got to find a balance between keeping updated, being modern, being progressive, and traditional, and things that are definable and people can relate to. And I think that's where Kathleen has failed. She sort of had her the Force's female agenda, and she just went full force with it, and no pun intended. And it's kind of backfired because people haven't jumped on. They haven't brought in a swarm of female fans, and they've alienated the male fans and basically told them, this is not made for you, go away, we don't want you, you're a dinosaur, you're a racist, you're a troll, you're misogynistic, you're just the worst trash in the world. That's what we constantly are hearing. That's what I'm hearing as a male fan of genre. Although I have the gay card, so it's not quite the same as... I'd hate to be a straight male science fiction fan. You're not represented at all. You're not part of what they're trying to promote. You're the enemy, basically. So it's just a big mess. And as far as the Civil War goes, there's talk that Kathleen's going to go and create her own production company. That makes sense. I wish she would. I think she should just go and focus on her own work instead of trying to make things that already exist and bend them to her will and what she thinks they should be, because her idea is not... Her idea of these shows is not what the fans want and not what really resonates with the public. So she needs to just move on, realise it wasn't a good fit, let it go, but apparently she's a control freak and she's trying to hold on. And that was the other thing that came out of the rumours, which I do believe, the idea that the culture at Lucasfilm changed, that when Disney came in, they just changed everything and they made it a place that worked on gaslighting and intimidation and fear and silence and denial and all these unhealthy things, as opposed to the environment that Lucas had basically created. And we've heard a lot of first-hand examples from people who worked at Lucasfilm talking about the difference between now and then, or what it's like now after they've left. So I think that's real. I think the Civil War is real, and they have to get rid of Kathleen. Not because she's a female. If a male had came in with the same ideas, like if Rian Johnson had been somehow the president of Lucasfilm, it'd be as much of a shitstorm, and he'd have to go just as much as her. I really don't. I'm sure there's a few people who think that they're just plain old misogynistic. Like, there's plain old racists out there and plain old homophobes. We can't deny these people don't exist in the fan base, but they're not the majority. They're not what pushes the fans through, and it's just such a mess. I long for the days where science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, all these were escapism and entertainment, and now they're just politics and drama, and they're not something you watch for entertainment. They're something you monitor, because you're just trying to see what's happening and monitor the damage for today, and how the next project is faring, and sort of hoping for it to change and get better. And that's really depressing. Now back onto what I was sort of talking about before. So far as the rumours about the erasing the sequel trilogy, with all the billions that they spent on producing them, I don't think Disney's going to do that. they may stay out of that era, and that's fine. But I do think it's basically wish fulfillment, and I think a lot of YouTubers who made a lot of money out of these problems with Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and all that, in the off seasons, they kind of get a bit hungry for material, and I think some of them just make stuff up, and others, they just jump on rumours quicker than they normally would because they need the clicks, they need the views. Like, I'm a nobody YouTuber. I just make videos for my own entertainment. It's like therapy, just to talk when something interests me or I'm upset about something. And maybe they go semi-viral and I get a few hundred or a few thousand views, or maybe they don't and no one watches. That's fine. I make them for myself. But these other people, they've been making them for years and making them at a high volume for a lot of viewers, and they get a lot of money out of them, and they need to maintain that. So I can understand why some people are jumping on bandwagons. Now, I saw a video by Urban Acolyte who was basically tearing apart Doomcock. And I saw an article the other day, and one of the sources was Doomcock. I'm like, now this is going too far. He's not a media outlet. He may have some connections because of who he is and what he does, but there needs to, he's not a legitimate media news source. So that's a bit scary. So I understand why they're getting on him. But one of the things they attacked him with in this video was the fact that he basically didn't break anything. He was just announcing things, reporting things that were already out there. And that actually, to me, gave him more credibility because he was doing what Mecha Random and some people say they do. They basically wait until they each have sort of heard the same news from different people, and then they start talking about it because they want to, even if they're dealing with rumours, they want them to at least be substantial. So, but yeah, I think a lot of people are feeding on the negativity and focusing on that because it is their bread and butter. I don't really blame them for that, but you just have to be aware of it, and it's just, like I said, it's depressing. I just wish Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, all the classic franchises were good again, and you could just watch them and not get sucked into politics and drama and all of this. And I guess I'm going to go because this video is getting really long. I didn't intend for it to be this long. I just had been seeing these stories and not really wanting to talk about them, but it's sort of gotten to the point now where there's enough to say, and as the fact I took this long shows, I've got some opinions, and I think I'm done. Yeah, it's just Kathleen needs to go. They need to just focus on what fans want. And if people want, PC content and agenda-driven political stories and movies, great, make them. They're interesting, but don't force them on things that already exist, that already have a fan base that are there to escape all that. Basically, it really was a bad combination. It did not work. Kathleen just had the total... She may have had a good agenda. She may have been quite justified, being a woman in Hollywood for all these years, probably not being treated the best over the years, with a lot of resentment, wanting to change things for the women coming up behind her. That's quite admirable, I get that. But you have to work out how to do this stuff so it works. So there's no point just screwing up something people love and then being resented for it, and then your mission or your agenda or what you're trying to draw attention to or make better, you're really just hurting your own cause. And I think she's done that for the most part. And a lot of the talk of her going is wishful thinking. People just want her to go. But I do think at the end of this contract, she's going to be gone because basically Disney doesn't make as much money from Star Wars as they should have. And she's going to be blamed for that, whether it's really her fault or not. So, yeah, I don't know if we can ever repair these franchises. I don't know if we're ever going to go back to the days where the big three, Star Trek, Star Wars, and Doctor Who, were just gangbusters again. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. I don't think it can now. There'd have to be a drastic change that was like really motivated, someone really in charge wanting to take these shows back to what they were before. And I don't think that's there because the political climate in Hollywood is just it's just not it's not happening that way. But we'll see. I'm going to go talk too long, but like I said, this is therapy for me. Talking about all this stuff, because I'm home, quarantining alone, going a little bit crazy. So this is one of the things I do. I just talk about stuff. And if people watch, great. If they don't, I'm fine. Thanks, bye.